The alarm screamed through the metal corridors of Mining Station Alpha 7. Hyunwoo Park pulled his helmet tighter and grabbed his plasma cutter. Another quota day in the asteroid belt. Another day of digging rare metals for alien masters who saw humans as nothing more than tools. "Move faster, human!" The Vilethron Overseer's voice crackled through the comm system. Its four arms moved quickly across control panels, while its large black eyes watched the human workers. "The Empire needs those crystals today," Hyunwoo said. Nothing. Speaking back meant punishment. He had learned this lesson 50 years ago when the Valethrons first came to Earth. He was just a boy then, watching their massive ships block out the sun. His parents told him to stay quiet and maybe the aliens would leave them alone. They were wrong. The aliens did not leave. They stayed and made Earth into a farm. Humans became crops to be harvested and used. Some went to mines like this one. Others went to alien worlds to build cities or clean waste. The lucky ones died quickly. Hyunwoo floated through the asteroid tunnel, his magnetic boots clicking against the metal floor. Around him, other humans worked in silence. Their faces looked tired and empty. Hope was a dangerous thing in the Empire. Hope got you sent to the punishment centers, but Hyunwoo still had hope. His sister Ji-yoon was still alive somewhere on Earth. She sent coded messages through the old communication networks. She was fighting back, even though it seemed impossible. Back on Earth, Ji-yoon Park crouched in the ruins of what used to be Seoul. The Valethrons had built their administrative center right on top of the old city. Tall alien towers reached into the sky while humans lived in the underground tunnels and sewers. She checked her watch. The supply transport would arrive in 20 minutes. Her team had been planning this attack for months. They would hit the transport, steal medical supplies, and disappear before the alien guards could respond. "Remember," she whispered to the 5 humans hiding with her. "No unnecessary killing. We take what we need and leave. Dead guards bring more attention." Tae-min Lee nodded. He used to study the stars before the invasion. Now he translated alien orders and helped plan resistance. Attacks. His knowledge of Valethran language made him valuable to both sides. The aliens trusted him. The resistance needed him. "The transport has 40 guards," Tae-min said quietly, "but most will stay with the vehicle. Only 10 will come inside the medical facility." Ji-yoon smiled grimly. 10 guards were still dangerous, but her team had faced worse odds. They had to face worse odds. Humans did not have fancy weapons or armor like the Valethrons. They had desperation and anger. Sometimes that was enough. On Mars, young Mi Kim stood before a crowd of 500 humans. They lived in domed settlements that the aliens had built for mining operations. The Red Planet held valuable gases that the Valethron Empire needed for their war machines. "The quota has increased again," young Mi announced. Her voice carried across the settlement's main hall. "Command wants 30% more gas extraction this month." Angry voices filled the hall. Humans were already working 18-hour days. Many were getting sick from the toxic gases. 30% more meant some would die. "What if we refuse?" asked an old man in the front row. Young Mi looked at him sadly. "You know what happens when we refuse?" Everyone knew. Refusal meant the punishment ships. Humans who went to the punishment ships came back changed, their minds broken, their spirits crushed. They became perfect slaves who never complained and never resisted. "We will find a way," young Mi said firmly. "We always find a way." But privately, she wondered how much longer they could survive. The Veilthrons pushed harder every year. They demanded more work and gave less food. They treated humans like machines that could be run until they broke down. In the alien administrative center on Europa, Taimin Lee sat at his translation desk. Veilthron officers moved around him, discussing strategy and giving orders. They ignored him completely. To them, he was just another piece of equipment. This invisibility was useful. Taimin heard many secrets. He learned about troop movements and supply lines. He discovered which human settlements were scheduled for optimization, the alien word for mass executions. Today, he heard something new. The officers were discussing something called Project Harvest. They spoke in excited tones about moving entire populations and converting worlds for reproduction expansion. Taimin kept his face calm while his heart raced. Whatever project Harvest was, it involved billions of humans, and from the way the aliens talked about it, those humans would not survive the process. He had to get this information to the Resistance, but first, he had to survive the rest of his shift without showing any emotion. Veilthrons were good at reading body language. One suspicious look could mean death. Back on the mining station, Hyunwoo finished his shift and returned to the human quarters. The room was small and cramped. 20 humans shared the space that would be tight for 5. Privacy was another luxury that slaves did not deserve. He lay on his metal bunk and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere out there, his sister was fighting to free their people. Other humans across the galaxy were probably doing the same thing. But their enemy was vast and powerful. The Veilthron Empire controlled hundreds of worlds and commanded technology that humans could barely understand. Still, Hyunwoo refused to give up. Humans had survived ice ages and wars and diseases. They had built cities and explored space. They had created art and music and stories that touched the soul. The Veilthrons could enslave human bodies. They could control human actions, but they could not touch the human spirit. That flame still burned in hidden places across the galaxy. It burned in resistance cells and secret meetings. It burned in coded messages and whispered plans. It burned in the hearts of every human who remembered what freedom felt like. The aliens thought they had won. They thought humans were broken and defeated. They were wrong. Humans were not broken. They were learning. They were adapting. They were preparing. And someday, when the moment was right, that hidden flame would become a fire that would burn across the stars. The Veilthrons had made one critical mistake. They had given humans time to remember who they really were. They had given humans something to fight for. The asteroid looked like any other rock floating in space. Hyunwoo guided his mining ship closer, checking the scanners for valuable metals. His team of 12 humans worked quietly behind him, preparing their equipment. Readings show high concentrations of trilithium, reported Soo-Jin Choi from the scanner station. She was young, maybe 25, but the aliens had worked her for 10 years already. Her hands moved expertly over the controls. Deep core, about 300 meters down. Hyunwoo nodded. Trilithium-powered Veilthron weapons. The Empire always needed more of it. His job was to extract it quickly and efficiently. His life depended on meeting the quota. The mining laser cut through the asteroid's surface like a hot knife through ice. Chunks of rock and metal floated away into space. Hyunwoo watched the depth meter carefully. 200 meters, 250, 290. Then the laser hit something else. The scanner exploded with light and sound. Warning alarms filled the ship. Jin stared at her instruments in confusion. "Captain, I'm reading energy signatures I've never seen before," she said. "The object is giving off massive power readings." Hyunwoo felt his pulse quicken. Finding alien artifacts was strictly forbidden. Humans who reported such discoveries often disappeared, but hiding artifacts was even more dangerous. "Bring it aboard," he decided. "We'll examine it quickly and then report it to command." The mining beam carefully extracted a metallic object, about the size of a person. It was covered in strange symbols and seemed to pulse with inner light. When they brought it into the cargo bay, every human on the ship felt something change. Jin was the first to notice. Her hands moved over the control panels faster than ever before. Her eyes seemed brighter, more focused. The scanner readings made perfect sense to her now, as if she had been reading them her whole life. "Captain," she said slowly, "I think I understand what this is." Before Hyunwoo could respond, the artifact activated itself. Light filled the cargo bay. Energy waves spread through the ship and out into space. Every human felt the change immediately. Strength flowed through their bodies. Their minds became clearer and faster. Knowledge appeared in their thoughts. Knowledge about technology and weapons and the history of the galaxy. Outside the ship, 3 Vilethran patrol vessels detected the energy pulse. They moved quickly to investigate, their weapons charging for battle. But when they reached the mining ship, their systems began failing one by one. The first patrol ship lost power and drifted helplessly in space. The second ship's weapons turned against itself, firing randomly at its own hull. The third ship's crew abandoned their posts and fled in escape pods. On the mining ship, Hyunwoo stared at his hands. He felt stronger than ever before. He also felt angry, angrier than he had ever been in his life. The fury of 50 years of slavery burned in his chest like fire. "We're going home," he announced to his crew. "We're going to Earth." Meanwhile, on Earth, Ji-eun Park crouched in her hiding place beneath the ruins of Seoul. Her communication device crackled with coded messages from resistance cells around the world. Something was happening. Humans everywhere were reporting strange dreams and sudden bursts of knowledge. More importantly, they were reporting successful attacks against Vilethran forces. A supply convoy had been destroyed in Africa. A prison camp had been liberated in South America. An alien administrative center had gone dark in Australia. "What's causing this?" asked Taemin Lee. He had escaped from Europa and made his way back to Earth. The knowledge he carried was too important to trust to coded messages. "I don't know," Jian replied. "But something has changed. Our people are stronger, faster. They're fighting back in ways I've never seen." Taemin pulled out a data pad containing information he had stolen from the alien computers. "Before I left Europa, I decoded part of Project Harvest. The Valethrons are planning to move Earth's entire population to labor camps across the galaxy. They want to turn our planet into a breeding world for their species." Ji-eun felt cold anger settle in her stomach. "When?" 6 months. Maybe less. "Then we don't have time to figure out what's happening to our people," Ji-eun said. "We have to use it. Whatever this new strength is, we use it to stop Project Harvest." On Mars, young Mi Kim was having similar thoughts. The humans in her settlement had changed overnight. They worked faster and complained less, but not because they were broken. They were planning something. She could see it in their eyes. "The quota increase is impossible," said an old man named Min Ho Yoon. "He used to be a military officer before the invasion. Now he maintained food production systems for the aliens." But maybe impossible is what we need. What do you mean? Young Me asked. If we can't meet their demands, they'll punish us, Minho explained. But if we're already planning to rebel, punishment doesn't matter anymore. Young Me understood. The Velthrons had always controlled humans through fear of consequences. But humans who were no longer afraid could not be controlled. Gather the cell leaders, she ordered. We're moving up our timeline. Back in space, Hyunwoo's mining ship approached Earth for the first time in 20 years. The planet looked different now. Alien structures covered the continents like metal cancer. The oceans were darker, polluted by industrial waste. The sky was filled with Valthran ships coming and going like insects around a hive. But Earth was still home. And Hyunwoo could feel his people calling to him. Every human on the planet seemed connected now, sharing thoughts and strength across impossible distances. Sujin, can you get us past their defenses? He asked. She smiled for the first time since he had known her. Captain, I can do more than that. I can turn their defenses against them. Her hands moved over the control panels like a master musician playing a complex song. The ship's systems responded to her touch in ways that should have been impossible. Alien technology bent to her will as if it had been designed for humans all along. The Velthron orbital defense grid recognized their ship as friendly and allowed them to pass. Landing permits were approved automatically. Even the guards at the spaceport waved them through without inspection. How did you do that? Hyunwoo asked in amazement. I'm not sure, Sujin replied honestly. But I understand their technology now. It's like remembering something I used to know but had forgotten. As their ship touched down on Earth's surface, Hyunwoo felt the planet welcoming him home. Millions of human voices whispered in his mind, sharing their strength and their rage. The artifact they had found was not just a weapon. It was a key that unlocked something that had been sleeping in the human spirit. The Velthrons had enslaved humanity's bodies, but they had awakened something far more dangerous than they could imagine. They had awakened humanity's soul. Dong-Hyun Nam had been flying Velthron transport ships for 15 years. He knew every control panel, every safety system, every weakness in their design. The aliens trusted him because he had never caused trouble. He was the perfect slave. Quiet, obedient, and skilled. Today, that trust would destroy them. The transport ship carried 50 Velthron soldiers to a mining colony in the outer system. They sat in their seats talking loudly about their plans to expand human labor quotas. They did not notice when Dong-Hyun quietly activated the ship's automated defense systems. Computer, identify hostile targets, he said in perfect Velthron. Language, no hostile targets detected, the computer replied. Computer, scan for Velthron life signs. 51 Velthron life signs detected aboard this vessel. Dong-Hyun smiled coldly. Computer, reclassify all Velthron life signs as hostile. Targets. The ship's internal weapons activated immediately. Energy beams filled the passenger compartment. In seconds, 50 Velthron soldiers were dead. Dong-Hyun felt no guilt. These aliens had killed his family and enslaved his people. Today was payback. He changed course toward Earth, where other humans waited for weapons and ships. The rebellion was spreading faster than anyone had imagined. Whatever had changed in the human spirit was making them smarter, stronger, and far more dangerous. On Europa, Taemin Lee accessed the alien computer systems one final time before his escape, the knowledge flowing through his enhanced mind aloud. him to crack security codes that should have been impossible to break. He downloaded everything: military plans, colony locations, and most importantly, the complete files on Project Harvest. What he found made his blood run cold. Project Harvest was not just about moving humans to other worlds. The Valthrans planned to use human genetic material to create a new slave species. They would breed humans like animals, selecting for obedience and strength while removing intelligence and creativity. But there was more. Deep in the files, Taemin found references to an ancient enemy called the Corvani. These beings had fought the Valthrans thousands of years ago and lost. Before their extinction, they had hidden weapons throughout the galaxy. Weapons designed to activate only when touched by enslaved species. The artifact that Hyunwoo's team had found was one of these weapons. There were hundreds more scattered across Valthran space, waiting for the right moment to awaken. Taemin copied everything to a secure data storage device and began his escape. As he moved through the alien facility, his enhanced senses detected 3 guards approaching his position. Before the invasion, he would have hidden and hoped they passed by. Now he acted with deadly precision. The first guard died before he could raise his weapon. The second managed to fire one shot that missed completely. The third tried to run, but Taemin caught him at the elevator doors. In 30 seconds, all 3 aliens were dead, and Taemin was boarding a shuttle to Earth. Meanwhile, in the luxury district of the Valthran capital world, Yoonji Song served dinner to her alien masters. She had been a diplomat before the invasion, skilled in languages and negotiation. Now she cleaned floors and prepared meals for the family that had bought her at a slave auction. But tonight was different. Tonight, the knowledge of her ancestors flowed through her mind. She understood Valthran biology in ways that no human had ever understood it before. She knew exactly where to strike to cause maximum pain. Lord Vaexthor was discussing the human rebellions with his family when Eunji entered the dining room. "These uprisings are becoming troublesome," he said, his 4 arms gesturing dramatically. "Perhaps we should accelerate Project Harvest." "The humans are more resourceful than we anticipated," agreed Lady Ketara. "Some of them have gained access to Corvani technology. How is this possible?" Yoonji poured wine into their glasses while listening carefully. When Lord Vaexthor reached for his drink, she struck. The knife went deep into his primary heart. Purple blood sprayed across the table. "Lady," Katara screamed and reached for her emergency communicator. Yoonji grabbed her wrist and twisted until bones snapped. The alien fell to the floor, gasping in pain. "You want to know how humans got access to Corvani technology?" Yoonji said calmly. "We found it because we needed it. We learned to use it because we had to, and now we're going to use it to destroy every one of you." She killed the rest of the family quickly and efficiently. Then she accessed Lord Vaexthor's personal computer and downloaded military codes and base locations. Within an hour, she was aboard a stolen ship heading back to human space. The Valthran High Command was beginning to realize the scope of the problem. Reports flooded in from across the Empire. Slave revolts, missing ships, dead overseers. The humans had somehow gained abilities that made them extremely dangerous. Admiral Zulvex studied the battle reports with growing alarm. "These are not random uprisings," he told his staff. "The humans are coordinated. They have access to our technology and our security codes. Some outside force must be helping them." "What do you recommend?" asked his aide. "Total suppression," the admiral replied. "Execute 10% of all human populations immediately. Show them the cost of rebellion." But the order came too late. Human forces were already moving against Valthran military installations, led by former slaves who now understood alien technology better than its creators. They struck with precision and fury. On Earth, Ji-Un Park coordinated the largest slave uprising in galactic history. Millions of humans rose simultaneously against their alien masters. They used improvised weapons and stolen equipment, but their greatest advantage was their unity. Every human could feel the others fighting, sharing strength across impossible distances. "The spaceport is ours," reported Min-Ho Yoon over the communication network. "We have 12 transport ships and enough weapons for 3,000 fighters." "The administrative center has fallen," added another voice. "All alien personnel are dead or captured." Ji-Un felt a fierce joy burning in her chest. For 50 years, humans had endured slavery and humiliation. Now they were fighting back with interest. Every dead alien was payment for a murdered human child. Every captured ship was compensation for a destroyed city. But she knew this was just the beginning. The Valthrons controlled hundreds of worlds and commanded massive military forces. The rebellion would have to spread beyond Earth to have any chance of success. Fortunately, it was already spreading. On Mars, young Mi Kim led her people in a coordinated assault on the planetary defense grid. Using knowledge downloaded from the Corvani artifacts, they turned the aliens' own weapons against them. Orbital platforms that had protected Valthran interests now fired on alien ships trying to escape. "Status report," young Mi called out as she watched enemy vessels burn in the Martian sky. "All major installations are under our control," replied a former mining engineer. "We have enough supplies to hold out for months if necessary." "What about casualties?" "Minimal on our side. The aliens never expected us to understand their technology better than they do." Young Mi nodded grimly. "The Valthrons had made the same mistake that conquerors always made. They underestimated their victims. They saw humans as primitive animals, incapable of learning or adapting. They were learning how wrong they had been. Across the galaxy, the pattern repeated itself. Human slaves rose against their masters with skills and knowledge they should not have possessed. They captured ships, destroyed installations, and liberated their people with efficiency that shocked even themselves. The storm was just beginning, and at its center the ancient rage of an enslaved species was awakening after 50 years of forced sleep. The Valthran Biological Research Station orbited a dead moon in the Kepler system. For 20 years, alien scientists had used human subjects to test new diseases and medical procedures. Thousands of humans had died in the laboratories, their bodies discarded like broken equipment. Wu Jinhan had worked in those laboratories for 8 years. He cleaned floors and disposed of medical waste while watching his people suffer and die. The aliens never bothered to guard him closely. After all, he was just a janitor. They did not know that Wu Jin had been a biochemist before the invasion. They did not know that he had been secretly studying their research and memorizing their procedures. And they certainly did not know about the Corvani knowledge flowing through his enhanced mind. Tonight, he would use that knowledge to turn their own weapons against them. The biological agent he had created was beautiful in its simplicity. It targeted Valthran nervous system specifically, leaving other species completely unharmed. A single drop in the air circulation system would kill every alien on the station within hours. Wu Jin accessed the ventilation controls using codes he had memorized from watching the technicians, the enhanced intelligence flowing through his Mind allowed him to calculate exactly how much agent to release and when to release it for maximum effect. Within 6 hours, 800 Violthran scientists and guards were dead. Wu Jin then freed the 2,000 human test subjects still alive in the facility. Many were sick or injured, but they were alive. That was enough. "How did you do this?" asked one of the freed prisoners, a woman named Hana Lim who had been subjected to neural experiments for 3 years. "I learned their science and made it better," Wu Jin replied simply. "Now we need to get everyone to safety before their military forces arrive." But Hana was not thinking about escape. The neural experiments had changed her brain in unexpected ways. She could feel the thoughts and emotions of every human on the station. More importantly, she could feel humans across the galaxy, millions of them rising in rebellion. "We're not running," she said firmly. "We're going to capture this station and use it as a base. The aliens have ships here, weapons, medical supplies, everything we need to save more of our people." Wu Jin stared at her in surprise. Before the Corvani awakening, such a plan would have been suicide. Now it seemed not only possible, but inevitable. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt, Hyunwoo commanded a growing fleet of captured Veltran vessels. His knowledge of alien technology allowed him to modify their weapons and shields for human use. More importantly, his tactical skills had been enhanced beyond anything he thought possible. "Target the supply convoy's escort ships first," he ordered his captains. "Leave the cargo vessels intact. We need those supplies more than we need dead aliens." The battle lasted only minutes. Hyunwoo's ships moved in perfect coordination, striking the Velthron escorts before they could respond effectively. The enemy had superior numbers, but humans now fought with knowledge accumulated over thousands of years of galactic warfare. "Convoy neutralized," reported Soo-Jin Choi from her command ship. "No human casualties. We captured enough medical supplies to treat injuries from 12 different worlds." Hyunwoo felt satisfaction flow through him, but also a deeper hunger. Every successful battle made him want to strike harder and faster. The rage of 50 years of slavery burned in his chest like fuel for a star. "Set course for the Rigel system," he commanded. "Intelligence reports a prison planet there with 50,000 human captives." On that prison planet, Hana Lim was already preparing for liberation. The neural experiments that the aliens had performed on her had connected her mind to the Corvani network more completely than any other human. Through that network, she could coordinate resistance activities across multiple star systems. She stood before a crowd of 10,000 human prisoners in the planet's main compound. Around them, alien guards lay dead or unconscious. The prison's defenses had been turned against themselves through sabotage and hacking. "The Liberation Fleet will arrive in 6 hours," she announced. "But we're not waiting for rescue. We're going to take control of this entire world and use it as a staging area for further operations." The crowd roared its approval. These humans had suffered unimaginable torture and degradation. Now they had the chance to strike back against their tormentors. They would not waste it. "The armory is ours," reported a former engineer named Boram Jung. "We have enough weapons to arm 20,000 fighters. The aliens stored everything here because they thought the prison was absolutely secure." "What about the orbital defenses?" Hana asked. "Already neutralized. It turns out that Corvani technology interfaces with Velthran systems quite easily, almost like it was designed specifically to counter their defenses." Hana nodded grimly. The Corvani had been planning their revenge for millennia. They had embedded their knowledge in artifacts scattered across the galaxy, waiting for another enslaved species to find them and use them. Humanity, was not the first to discover these weapons, but they might be the first to use them successfully. Back on Earth, Ji-Yeon Park received constant updates from liberation forces across the galaxy. The scope of the uprising was beyond anything she had imagined possible. Humans were not just escaping slavery. They were systematically destroying the infrastructure that had supported the Veltran Empire. Mining operations in the Vega system have been completely disrupted, reported Taemin Lee. The aliens are losing 30% of their rare metal production. Food production colonies in the Centauri region are under human control, added another voice. The Valthrans are going to start experiencing supply shortages within weeks. Military production facilities in the core worlds are being sabotaged daily, said a third report. Their ability to build new ships and weapons is declining rapidly. Ji-Yeon felt fierce satisfaction burning in her chest. The Valthrans had built their empire on slave labor. Now that their slaves were rebelling, the entire structure was collapsing like a house built on sand. But she also knew that a wounded enemy was often most dangerous. The aliens would not accept defeat quietly. They would strike back with everything they had. She was right. In the Valthran capital, Emperor Thal Vex issued an ultimatum that was broadcast across the galaxy. The human rebellion ends now, his voice proclaimed. For every Valthran killed by human terrorists, we will execute 100 human civilians. For every installation damaged, we will destroy an entire human settlement. You have 24 hours to surrender unconditionally, or we will begin the systematic extermination of your species. The message reached every human in the rebellion simultaneously through the Corvani network. Instead of fear, it created a wave of cold rage that spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On the liberated prison planet, Hana Lim stood before her, assembled forces. They want to threaten our civilians? She said calmly. Then we'll show them what happens when you threaten the family of an angry human. In the asteroid belt, Hyun-Woo set course for the Valthran homeworld. They've just made their biggest mistake, he told his fleet commanders. They've given us a reason to stop holding back. On Earth, Ji-Yeon Park began coordinating the largest military operation in human history. Every liberated human, every captured ship, every stolen weapon would be directed toward a single goal, the complete destruction of the Veltran Empire. The aliens thought they were fighting a slave rebellion. They were wrong. They had awakened something far more dangerous, a species that remembered what genocide looked like and refused to let it happen again. The flames of human fury were about to become an inferno that would consume everything the Valthrans had built, and from those ashes, something new would rise, a galaxy where slavery was not just illegal, but impossible. The Emperor's ultimatum had been a mistake of galactic proportions. Instead of surrendering, humans across the galaxy responded with coordinated fury that shocked even their allies. Species that had remained neutral for centuries suddenly found themselves choosing sides in a war that would reshape the galaxy. Inguk commanded a fleet of liberated alien mercenaries in the Proxima system. These were species that the Valthrans had conquered but not enslaved, beings who had been forced to serve the Empire while watching their freedoms slowly disappear. The human rebellion had given them hope for the first time in generations. The Valthran battle group is approaching our position, reported his Zelkari navigator. The insect-like alien's compound eyes glowed with excitement. 12 heavy cruisers and 40 escort vessels. How many ships do we have? Inguk asked calmly. 8 human vessels and 23 allied ships, replied a Thurian engineer. The bear-like alien's claws clicked against the control panels as he worked. "We are outnumbered almost 2-to-1. Inguk smiled coldly. Before the Corvani awakening, those odds would have meant certain death. Now they meant an interesting challenge. All ships, prepare for battle. Remember, we're not just fighting for humans anymore. We're fighting for every species that wants to be free." The battle began with the Vilthrons firing their heaviest weapons at the human ships. They expected the inferior vessels to be destroyed immediately. Instead, the human ships seemed to dance between the energy beams, their movements too fast and precise for alien targeting systems to track. "How are they doing that?" demanded Admiral Kreshivor from his flagship. "Unknown, sir," replied his tactical officer. "Their ships are moving in patterns that our computers cannot predict. It's almost like they know where we're going to fire before we do." They did know. The Corvani network allowed human commanders to share tactical information instantly across vast distances. Inguk could feel the thoughts and experiences of every human who had ever fought the Vilthrons, stretching back thousands of years to the original war. "Target their command ship," Inguk ordered. "All Allied vessels, concentrate fire on the flagship." The combined fleet struck with precision that amazed even the aliens fighting alongside them. Vilthran shields collapsed under focused bombardment. Hull plating vaporized under alien energy weapons that had been modified with Corvani technology. Admiral Kreshivor's flagship died in a brilliant explosion that lit up the entire system. The remaining Vilthran ships tried to retreat, but human vessels moved to block their escape routes with impossible coordination. Within 2 hours, the entire enemy fleet was destroyed or captured. Inguk had not lost a single ship. On the industrial world of Kepler 442b, Yejin Quan led a strike team against the largest weapons manufacturing facility in Vilthron space. For 15 years, she had worked in the factory as a maintenance technician, learning every detail of alien weapon production while planning her revenge. "Security sweep complete," she reported to her team through their neural link. 47 guards eliminated, no alarms triggered. The factory was massive, covering hundreds of square kilometers and employing thousands of alien workers. It produced the energy weapons that Vilthran forces used to maintain control over their slave populations. Destroying it would cripple their military capability for months. But Yejin had a better idea than simple destruction. "Plant the conversion devices at the primary assembly points," she ordered. "We're not just going to destroy their weapons. We're going to turn their own factory against them." The Corvani technology she carried could reprogram alien manufacturing systems to produce weapons designed for human use. Instead of energy rifles that fired in predictable patterns, the factory would now build weapons that adapted to their users' thoughts and intentions. "Conversion complete," reported her second-in-command after 6 hours of careful work. "The factory will continue producing weapons, but they'll only work for humans and our allies." Yejin felt deep satisfaction as she watched the first batch of new weapons roll off the assembly line. The Vilthrons would keep paying for weapon production without realizing they were arming their enemies. Meanwhile, on Earth, Tae-Min Lee made the most important discovery in human history. Deep in the captured alien databases, he found records of the original war between the Corvani and the Vilthrons. What he learned changed everything. The Corvani weren't just another enslaved species, he explained to Ji-Un Park through their secure communication link. They were the galaxy's peacekeepers. They maintained a confederation of free worlds that lasted for millions of years. "What happened to them?" Ji-Un asked. "The Vilthrons happened. They developed a weapon that could destroy entire star systems." The Corvani tried to negotiate peace, but the aliens wanted complete domination, so the Corvani made a choice. Taemin paused, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he had discovered. They sacrificed themselves to hide weapons throughout the galaxy. Not just technology, consciousness. The stored memories and knowledge of billions of Corvani are embedded in those artifacts. Every time a human touches one, we gain access to their collective experience. Ji-eun felt a chill run down her spine. How many artifacts are there? Thousands, maybe tens of thousands, and we've only activated a few dozen so far. The implications were staggering. If humans could activate more Corvani artifacts, they would gain access to millions of years of scientific and military knowledge. They would become more than just rebels fighting for freedom. They would become the inheritors of the galaxy's greatest civilization. But they were not the only ones who understood this. In the depths of Valthron space, Emperor Thalvex convened an emergency session of his war council. The humans have somehow gained access to Corvani technology, he announced to the assembled admirals and generals. This makes them infinitely more dangerous than we anticipated. How is this possible? Demanded General Vorthax. The Corvani were extinct for millennia before we even discovered Earth. Unknown, the Emperor replied grimly. But the implications are clear. If the humans continue to activate Corvani artifacts, they will eventually possess technology superior to our own. What do you recommend? Asked Admiral Zulvex. Emperor Thalvex's 4 eyes burned with cold fury. Total war. We will mobilize every ship, every weapon, every soldier in the Empire. The human rebellion ends now, even if we have to destroy every planet they inhabit. The order went out across Valthran space within hours. Fleet commanders recalled their ships from patrol duties. Planetary governors were ordered to conscript every able-bodied alien for military service. Factory worlds began producing weapons and ammunition around the clock. But the Emperor had made another critical error. By declaring total war, he had revealed the true scope of Valthran desperation. Neutral species saw that the Empire was afraid, truly afraid, for the first time in its history. On the liberated world of New Arcturus, Siho Kim began broadcasting evidence of Valthran war crimes across the galaxy. The neural experiments, the mass executions, the plans for human genocide. Everything was laid bare for the galaxy to see. The Valthran Empire has committed genocide against 17 different species. His voice carried across thousands of star systems. They have enslaved billions of sentient beings and treated them like animals. Today, we have the chance to end their reign of terror forever. The broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy. Species that had lived in fear of Valthran retaliation suddenly found the courage to act. Rebellions erupted on dozens of worlds. Trade routes were cut. Supply lines were sabotaged. The empire that had ruled through fear and intimidation for millennia was beginning to collapse under the weight of its own cruelty. But the humans were not content to simply watch their enemies destroy themselves. They had 50 years of pain and rage to repay. And they had the tools to make that payment. In full, the universe was about to learn what happened when humanity stopped trying to survive and started trying to win. The Emperor's final gambit came without warning. A massive Valthran fleet emerged from hyperspace above Earth, their weapons already charging for a planet-killing barrage. Emperor Thalvex believed that destroying humanity's birth world would break their spirit and end the rebellion. He was wrong about everything. Kyungmin An was aboard one of the last ships to escape Earth's atmosphere when the bombardment began. She watched through the viewport as energy beams turned continents into molten glass. Oceans boiled away into steam. The atmosphere caught fire and burned like a torch in the darkness of space. 50 billion humans died in 30 minutes. Earth, the birth world of humanity, was reduced to a dead cinder floating in space. But instead of breaking human morale, the destruction of Earth did something else entirely. It awakened every Corvani artifact in the galaxy simultaneously. Kyung-min felt the change first. Raw power flowed through her body like liquid lightning. Her mind expanded to contain knowledge and memories that spanned millions of years. She could feel every human in the galaxy sharing the same transformation. They were no longer just rebels fighting for freedom. They had become something else, something that the universe had not seen since the Corvani themselves walked among the stars. All human forces, this is Admiral Ji-eun Park. The voice carried across space through quantum communication networks that functioned beyond known physics. Earth is gone, but we remain. Today we become more than survivors. Today we become justice itself. Ji-eun stood on the command deck of her flagship, watching tactical displays that showed human forces across the galaxy. Each group was moving with perfect coordination toward predetermined targets. The network connecting their minds had become something beyond mere communication. It was a shared consciousness focused on a single goal: the complete destruction of the Vialthron Empire. Fleet Admiral Hyun-woo, report status, Ji-eun commanded. 2,000 ships converging on the Valthran homeworld, came the immediate reply. Enemy resistance is collapsing across all fronts. Their technology cannot match what we have become. It was true. Human ships now moved faster than Valthran computers could track. Human weapons penetrated alien shields as if they were made of paper. Human soldiers fought with skills accumulated over millions of years of galactic warfare. The Corvani had been preparing for this moment since their extinction. Every artifact contained not just knowledge, but the burning desire for justice that had sustained their species through its final days. Now that desire flowed through human hearts, magnified by 50 years of slavery and focused by the destruction of Earth. On the prison world that Hana Lim had liberated, 50,000 humans prepared for the final assault. They had captured enough Vialthron ships to transport their entire force to the enemy homeworld. More importantly, they had captured the knowledge needed to break through any defense the aliens could mount. The orbital fortresses around their capital world are heavily armed, reported Jae Young-oh, a former engineer who now commanded a battle squadron. But their targeting systems are designed to track ships moving at normal speeds. We won't be moving at normal speeds. Hana nodded grimly. The enhanced reflexes and coordination flowing through human nervous systems allowed them to pilot spacecraft in ways that defied physics. They could accelerate and turn at rates that would kill normal beings, protected by Corvani technology that generated localized gravity fields. Sunhee Park, status of ground forces? Hana asked. Ready for planetary assault, came the reply from the commander of human marine forces. We have enough firepower to level their capital city, but I recommend surgical strikes instead. Let them see their leaders die one by one. The recommendation made sense. The Valthrons had ruled through fear and intimidation. Watching their supposedly invincible leaders fall to former slaves would destroy their will to fight more effectively than any weapon. As human fleets converged on the Valthran homeworld, Emperor Thalvex realized the magnitude of his error. Reports flooded in from across the empire. Human forces were not just winning battles. They were annihilating entire Valthron fleets without taking casualties. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded of his remaining admirals. 70%. "Of the fleet, Your Majesty," Admiral Zulvex replied with barely controlled panic. "The humans are using technology we cannot comprehend. Our weapons cannot penetrate their shields. Our sensors cannot track their movements." "What about our allies?" the Emperor asked desperately. "Surely some species remained loyal to the Empire." "No, Your Majesty. Every client species has either joined the rebellion or declared neutrality. We are alone." Emperor Thalvex stared at the tactical display showing human ships surrounding his homeworld. For the first time in his life, he felt true fear. His empire, which had dominated the galaxy for millennia, was crumbling in a matter of weeks. "Prepare the planetary defense grid," he ordered. "We will make our final stand here." But the planetary defenses lasted less than an hour against the human assault. Jae-Young-Oh led the orbital bombardment that reduced the alien defense platforms to scrap metal. Hana Lim commanded the ground forces that swept through the capital city like an unstoppable tide. The final battle took place in the Imperial Palace itself. Chang Su-moon, now a general in the Liberation Forces, led a strike team through corridors filled with alien art stolen from conquered worlds. Paintings and sculptures from dozens of species lined the walls, trophies of genocide and enslavement. "Burn it all," Chang Su ordered his troops. "Let nothing remain of their legacy." Emperor Thalvex made his last stand in the throne room, surrounded by his personal guard. But Corvani weapons cut through Velthron armor like it was made of cloth. The elite soldiers who had terrorized the galaxy for generations died in seconds. The Emperor himself lasted longer, his 4 arms wielding energy weapons with desperate skill. But Changsu moved with reflexes enhanced by millions of years of accumulated combat experience. He was faster, stronger, and infinitely more motivated than his opponent. "You destroyed our world," Changsu said calmly as he drove his blade through the Emperor's primary heart. "You enslaved our people. You thought we were animals to be used and discarded." Emperor Thalvex collapsed to the marble floor, purple blood spreading beneath his body. What are you?" he gasped. "We are what you made us," Changsu replied. "We are the children of Earth, inheritors of Corvani justice, and the last thing you will ever see." The Emperor died with human faces burned into his vision, the faces of every slave who had suffered under his rule. Across the galaxy, the news spread instantly through the quantum communication network. The Valtran Empire was finished. Their homeworld was under human control. Their emperor was dead. But the humans were not done. For the next 6 months, they systematically hunted down every remaining Valthran noble, every collaborator, every being who had profited from slavery and genocide. Justice was swift and absolute. When the hunting was finished, Admiral Hyun-woo stood in the ruins of the Imperial Palace. Around him, representatives from hundreds of species gathered to witness the birth of something new. "The Galactic Liberation Council is now in session," he announced. "Today we established new laws that will govern our galaxy. The first law is simple. Slavery is not just illegal, it is impossible. Any species that attempts to enslave another will face the combined might of all free peoples." The assembled delegates, humans, Zelkari, Thurians, and dozens of other species, raised their voices in agreement. They had seen what happened to those who enslaved others. They would not make the same mistake. But the humans did not seek to become the new rulers of the galaxy. They had learned the lesson that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Instead, they established a confederation based on equality and mutual defense. "We remember what it was like to be slaves," Ji-un Park said in her speech to the new council. "We will never allow it to happen again to any species anywhere in the galaxy." The Corvani artifacts, their purpose finally fulfilled, began to fade. The ancient consciousness that had guided humanity's revenge was ready to rest at last. But they left behind something precious, the knowledge and wisdom needed to build a better galaxy. Years later, children of a dozen species would learn about the human liberation wars in their history classes. They would study how a single enslaved species had toppled an empire that seemed invincible. They would understand that freedom was not given. It was taken by those brave enough to fight for it. And on the memorial world that had once been Earth, now restored to life through Corvani technology, a simple inscription was carved in stone. Here lived humanity. They were enslaved, but they did not break. They were tested, but they did not fail. They remembered that freedom is not free, and they paid its price in full. The universe would never again underestimate the species that turned their chains into weapons and their suffering into strength. Humanity had taught the galaxy a lesson that would echo through the stars for millennia. Those who enslave others do so at their own peril. The age of slavery was over. The age of freedom had begun.